So are you, or have either of you read the module, either of the two modules that I sent out?
I read the
Okay,
first.
the value one?
Yeah.
Okay. Because the reason I sent two is I sent the value in color, and that's what this week's project is about. And then I also sent the annotated bibliography one. And I wanted to send that annotated bibliography one out a couple weeks early so that everybody would read it right away and look at it and give that time to soak in a little bit. Because what I think what is best on that, and I'm hoping that people actually do it this way, is you have a couple weeks, spend the first bit of time getting a feel for your artist and seeing what kind of stuff you can find online. Then take a rest. Then uh, look at what kind of resources there are and how you like them and visit them and take a rest. Then do the citations, take a rest, and then do the annotations. And I think that if people wait until the day before it's due, um, it's just going to give everybody a lot of big headache. So in that, I actually gave 10 steps as well on how to do the annotated bibliography. And I think it's 10. And it's just, each of them is kind of a small thing to do, but when you get done with them in sequence, you realize that it didn't hurt nearly as bad as you thought it would. So and the difference, there are a couple of things that I'm finding out with a couple of the other classes I'm teaching right now, is that in every class there's one or two people that when they see the word bibliography, they read biography. And this is not a biography. This isn't a life story of the artist you're picking. What it is finding several different resources and then kind of sharing what each of those resources say to you about the artist. And that's what the annotations are. And I sent out a couple of videos about MLA formatting. And I think there's at least one or two videos that just talk about putting together the annotated bibliography. I want, or I'm asking for 2 paragraphs. The first one is generally going to be like a summation of the source. And the second one is going to be why you think it's relevant, what you got out of it, what you liked about it, what you didn't like, those kinds of things. They also, the video that I sent out also suggests a third step too, which we're not including in our bibliography. So if you have any questions, just I'd rather you stick to the assignment that I've got written down so you don't give yourself more work than you need to. Right? I think you guys have enough work as it is. I don't think you need to give yourself more. That's the teacher's job. So this week's module is value and color. We talked about line and shape and form. Can you remember what the difference is between shape and form?
Form is something 3D, whereas shape is like your basic 2D shapes like square, rectangles, triangles.
Excellent. That's perfect. That's exactly right. Now, one of the ways that we can read those shapes and forms for what they are is with the application of things like value and color. Value is more helping us to understand how the surface of what it is we're looking at. As we see the value, our brain translates that as how the light bounces off whatever the form is. And color is something that culturally we attach all sorts of meaning to color, but color also attracts eyesights, eye line, and interest. And so an artist will use color for a number of different reasons. One is to provide a symbolic way of transmitting a message. Another is showing a kind of depth of field. We're going to ask you a question. I want you to think about it for just a second. Which is farther away, blue or red? When you look across the valley and you see mountains or hills on the far side, what color do they generally change from the way they normally are?
They're more of like a blue.
Yeah, with that greater depth of atmosphere, uh, or that greater volume of atmosphere between you and the object, it becomes more blue. And blue is generally felt to be farther away, and red is generally felt to be closer. It's interesting to me that we use these colors in art, but they also use it in astronomy too. You have something called redshift, where by how much a star is shifting from red and blue, an astronomer can tell whether or not the star is moving away, or they can tell how fast the star is moving away from us, and they can tell which stars are in front of others. You know, you look up in the night sky and it looks like they're all there at the same time, but some of them are billions and billions of light years away, and others of them are only a couple thousand. And the astronomer, when they find the redshift of the star, it helps them to determine things like that. So those, it's not just in painting or drawing, which I thought was interesting. It's probably extremely boring to you guys, but that's fine. I'm the teacher. I can talk about what I want. But those two things help us to see somebody's art, or if we're making the art ourselves, place the art in a context of space so that somebody else can begin to understand it and begin to get some of the ideas that we're trying to share. That's from the making perspective. From the seeing perspective, when we see value in color, that helps us to kind of buy into the volume of space that the artist has created. It lends a bit of believability. Have you ever heard of the phrase suspension of disbelief? That's something, if you learn about theater or movies, things like that, a lot of the times you'll see things that just would not happen in ordinary life, and the playwright or screenwriter or lighting director or set designer or whatever, all those people will work together to help the audience or us believe that what we're seeing is for the next hour and a half something that could actually be. You guys remember the Avengers movies? They spent millions of dollars on R&D creating the special effects that they used, specifically so that we could suspend our disbelief while the movie was going and really buy into the story. And the use of things like value and color in the things that an artist makes help us to suspend our disbelief for a moment, and allows us to pretend that the canvas that we're seeing or the sculpture that we're looking at may for a time be a real thing. It is a real painting or real sculpture, but we can also suspend our disbelief through their use of value and color and believe that it's a real thing as the artist intended it. One of the things for this module is making ink, your own ink. Another element of this is you're going to be making 12 value studies. And when I say that, it sounds like an awful lot, but each value study shouldn't take you more than about 10, 15 minutes. And what you're doing is just drawing a quick light outline of 3 different objects, and then using your inks that you're going to dilute in 3 different strengths to kind of fill in the values. So the point of the exercise is not to create a believable looking object that you've written down, but what it is designed to do is to help you to think about things in terms of values. Okay, for example, if the object that we're doing is an egg, and I'm going to do just a light outline. Can everybody see that? See that? Is it too pale? Too light? Okay, just pretend that I've drawn an oval and that it's an egg. And that's going to be my light outline. And then I'm going to look at it for a minute, and maybe I'll just do a very light area as to where I see that the most shadow is. And then maybe another light line so that I can know where the highlight is. And when we're talking about shadows and highlights, if we look at this bottle, you have a lot of light that's hitting it directly, but you can see that the highlights are these point areas like this that almost feel like creases that pick up the most light. This is a white bottle, and they're the areas that are the most white. And then the low lights are the areas of the greatest shadow far away from the light. And then the medium tones and the mid ranges are all the spaces in between. Another example would be with this cup here. What's the texture on the edge of the cup, going around the edge of the cup?
It looks like it's like indenting in.
Right. And you can see that because the edges of the indentations, the edges where it starts turning into the indentation, are highlighted. And inside the indentation, there's mid ranges and low lights to help you believe that what you're seeing actually has form. Can you see the highlights, low lights, and mid ranges on this cup? Yeah. So the three different objects you're going to make is you're going to find just a regular egg. You're going to find a rock that has texture on it, not a smooth river rock, but just a chunky rock or a brick, something like that. And you're going to get a stack of books. I'd say about 4 books that are about the same size, and just stack them up, ideally so you can see the white pages. And you're going to use that as kind of a cube. You're going to use the rock to kind of explore the textures of the rock, and you're going to have the egg. But again, how long are each of these supposed to take? 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah, you're not trying to make a photo accurate representation. What you're doing is just exploring the smooth shadows of the egg, the kind of rough and textury shadows of the rock, and the planar shadows. Planar, not PLAIN, but PLAN. It's like we're talking about a field, like in math. The planar uh, areas of the stack of books. All right. Does all this kind of make sense? Or is this all making sense to you? Now, I included 4 different videos about how to make inks and how to make your own pigments. You do need to watch all the videos, but you don't need to follow all those directions. All right. I think you can see 6 different ways of making inks out of things like avocado pits, calendula, and beetroot, and then one way that they used to make ink like 200 years ago. And then the 4th video shows you how to collect and make your own pigments for paints. We aren't going to be doing that this term. I was going to, but I found out that unless we can see each other in person and kind of share materials, everybody would have to buy like a half-pound bag of gum arabic or whatever. And I thought that'd be ridiculous because this is probably the only time you're going to be using it. So we aren't going to be making paints, and that's why we're doing inks. And I'll tell you a really quick and easy way to make inks, and this is also in the assignment. You need to have 3 different colors of ink. Can everybody see what this is? This is a positive energy sweet tangerine yogi tea that you can get at Walmart. I'm going to show you a couple others. This is a Rubio chai that's really good. This I got at Harmon's. The thing that's nice about this is that it's a very strong pink. If you can get the Rooibos tea, it gives you a really nice bright pink. I think I also suggested passion flower. That works really good. If you're a little bit more of a hippie, um, which I am, you can tell because of my shirt. When you become a hippie, they give you a card. The government does, and that card allows you to purchase things like the drug rug I'm wearing. And then you get the turmeric. But if you're more of a hippie, you can get Egyptian lotus tea, which makes a really beautiful blue too. This one gives you a really strong yellow. And depending, the rose can give you either a warm brown or kind of a pink. And that really depends on the mix. So, and then also I would select two colors from those. I would probably use the rooibos and the turmeric, so I can have like a pink and a yellow. And then I also have super, super, super cheap coffee. The super cheap instant coffee is really good for making stain and ink. And what you'll do is you'll boil about a cup of water for each of the three colors you're doing. You'll pour that into a container. If you're using something like this, where the recipe says 1 tablespoon for 6 ounces, then you're going to put at least 4 tablespoons into that cup of water. And you're going to be putting at least, I would say, 4 bags of tea in the cup of water. And just let them steep for about a half an hour. Then get some plastic gloves. Wear the plastic gloves where you squish the water out of the tea bags, or as you strain out the coffee grounds. And then add to each of those three things a tablespoon of vinegar. And the vinegar helps it to remain relatively light, fast, and semi-permanent on the paper. It is very important that you wear gloves when you do this. I mentioned this in the assignment page as well. If you don't wear gloves, what do you think is going to happen to your hands? They may stink a little bit, but they are also going to get stained. Then what you're going to be doing is getting some more cups. And by cups, I'm talking about this kind of, the silo kegger type cups. I'm sorry, I know you guys have no idea what a kegger is, but this is the style of cup that we're looking at. And what the reason is because then even if the inside stains, you can throw it away, big deal. Or if you have enough glass containers, use glass. But anything else, it'll stain it pretty well. So the first one, you're going to put a couple tablespoons or a quarter cup into one of the cups of what you made. And then you're going to put about a teaspoon or so of what you made into a second cup. And then you're going to add a little bit of water to each of those so that you have the first cup is going to be your solid color. The second cup, partially diluted, is going to be your mid-range tones. And the third cup was just a little bit of the tea or coffee that you made or whatever it is. That's going to be your highlights. So you want that just a little bit short of being completely clear. And then I give directions on how to make those value drawings as well, or value studies as well. For each color of tea, you'll do 1 egg, 1 rock, and 1 stack of books. And then when you're done with that, you'll have 9 little value studies, and it would probably be about an hour and a half, and then, or to 2 hours. And then the last 3, it doesn't really matter what you do on them, but you do need to use at least 1 value from each of the 3 teas that you make. And you could do this, like say I'm using sweet rose and turmeric and my coffee. So on the first one of those 3 on the egg, I may use highlights out of the coffee and the lowlights with the rooibos and the midtones with the turmeric. The next one, I may use all the lowlights in the coffee, the highlights in the turmeric, and the mid ranges in the rooibos, and just mix it up like that. Does that make sense to you guys? And the reason you're doing that is it's not representational. It's just kind of playing around, experimenting with the color that you've made. You guys have any questions about that assignment? Can one of you pretend to come up with a question that you think somebody else might ask? Alex is usually pretty good at that.
For the annotated bibliography.
Okay, we'll get to
I've done a
that
few.
in just a sec.
Okay.
Can you hold on to that thought, and then when we get to that, we'll talk about it. Okay. Some of the questions I anticipate may be things like how do we make the values? How do we do the mid ranges? How do we do all that kind of stuff? It's pretty well described in the module. Did it make sense to everybody as I was describing it to you just now? Okay, it seems pretty simple. All right. Good. I think that I don't want you spending more than half an hour on each of these things, 40 minutes, something like that. I don't want you spending any less than 10 or 15 minutes. If you do each of these in like 3 minutes, that doesn't mean anything. But if you maybe take a half an hour at the beginning and do all your fine light sketches at the very start, and then you can go through the others, fairly quickly. That would be a fine thing to do. I would also recommend putting down a garbage bag. Just you lay it flat underneath your work area so that you don't stain anything, and put some newspaper on top of it. That way, if anything does spill, it's not the end of the world. And I would do the same thing for the area that you're going to lay your paper on to dry. Okay. One thing that I've noticed that is really frustrating is if you have pets, they want to, particularly with the coffee ink, they want to explore that a lot. So you want to try to keep this out of the way of pets. And if you have any boy person roommates or boy person visitors, doesn't matter how old us boys are, we want to touch everything, we explore everything with our fingers. So you want to keep that out of the boy person range until it dries. All right, and it doesn't matter how old they are. I mean, all of us are the same. Would you agree, Alex? Yeah. Okay, and now, so Brianna gave me a great opportunity to awkwardly segue into the annotated bibliography assignment. That's going to be due in November 13th. And so Friday the 13th in November is on a Sunday this month, which is great. The annotated bibliography is something that a lot of people get really freaked out about. There's no reason to be. If you just take a bite at a time, that's why I send it out to everybody 3 weeks early. Do a little bit this week, do a little bit next week, and finish it up the following week. And then you'll be fine. What you'll need to do, we talked a little bit about what kind of sources are worthwhile last week. What you'll need to do is pull up your artist that you wrote that reflection on, the artist that you've chosen to do your research on. Then you're going to start searching that artist on the internet, and you can look for the person's name, artist, and add artist on a search engine, and it will pull up a lot of info. Or somebody also suggested using Wikipedia, but I don't like using Wikipedia for citation articles. Does anybody know why? There's no standard. What's that? Yeah, exactly. Anybody can write anything. If you have a 4-year-old that can type, they can submit an article on Wikipedia. What's the value of the Wikipedia article?
They have sources of where they got their information.
Excellent. Very good. They have links throughout the article. They have sources at the end. Excellent. And what I would recommend doing is do a search on the artist from like 2 or 3 different search engines. The ones that I would recommend would be, I like DuckDuckGo. but I also think that Google is exceptional, and I would also use YouTube. Use all three of those if possible. Sometimes looking at different search engines, since all of them have different algorithms that they use to search with, you're going to get different results. So you don't have to just keep scrolling page after page to find different things. You can usually find all that you need with just your first search on those three sites. And you just need 5. But what I would do first is I would bookmark. Actually, I don't bookmark a lot. I would just open a new tab and then copy and paste that into the tab. And what I would do is select at least 8 to 10 of those, and then go through and pick out the best 5 or the 5 that are the most interesting to you. And to get those, you don't even have to read the whole citation. Just look at it. Usually glancing over it pretty quick lets you know enough to know whether or not you want to use it, if it's interesting to you or anything like that. And you can also do multiple searches. Maybe your artist is a sculptor, so you can look up name of your artist, add sculptor, or name of the artist, then add artist. Name of the artist, and add wood carver or stone carver or mold making or whatever it is, whatever your artist does. And that will show you a different selection as well. All right, Brianna, what's your question?
I was just wondering about the format of the annotated bibliography because I know it has the indented citation, and then I'm wondering for like the summary part, like where we put in what we learned. Does it all have to be indented over like the indented part of the citation?
Well, I think that the most important thing is to make it so that it's really easy to read. And so what I would suggest is for each of your citations, have a number, then the citation, and you can indent that citation if you want. Then I would have a double space, first paragraph, double space, second paragraph, double space, next number, and then that citation, and just continue.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Because then it becomes a lot easier to read.
Okay, so just kind of make it easier to read.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's a really good question. Thank you. And again, what is the difference between a bibliography and a biography?
Bibliography is like a list of sources or like books, and where a biography is like their life.
Yes, perfect. Excellent. Very, very nicely said. Does anybody have any questions about that? I'll be doing other modules too between now and then, but I want you to be working on this in between your other stuff. And it may very well be that the annotated bibliography is something that you keep gnawing at here and there in between other things, and that would be perfectly fine. Because if you work on the annotated bibliography for, say, 10 minutes a day for the next 3 weeks, do you know how long that you'd be working on the annotated bibliography at 10 minutes a day? 3.5 hours. Yeah. So just a little bit here and there goes a long way. Anybody have any other questions? All right, excellent. Well, that is all that I wanted to talk about. If that covers everything and you guys are ecstatically happy, then our time together has drawn to a close for this week. And I will be just unable to sleep a wink with my anticipation of seeing all of you next Tuesday. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. You too.
We'll
Thank
see you
you.
guys.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.